Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your host, Eram Saeed, with an amazing, amazing treat for you guys today. As you know, From Heartache to Joy is a telesummit that is very conscientious, very careful about the kind of speakers we bring to this platform. I am deeply, deeply honored by the trust that you guys have placed in me. I get the emails that I cannot tell you how much gratitude I feel for them when you guys let me know that you have so much trust in me and that this telesummit seems to be providing the kind of service that you guys are looking for. It leaves me so full of gratitude. I feel honored. I feel humbled by it, and it really inspires me to even do more for you guys, to even be more careful, to bring to you speakers that are really, really going to bring you the kind of healing, the kind of enlightenment that you're looking for. So I am super excited to bring today's speaker to you guys. His name is Master Healer Danadoost, and I've been getting some pretty excited comments on the webcast from those of you that may have heard him on maybe one or two other telesummits. And so, yes, we are honored to have him with us today. Some of you already know him. Those of you that don't know about him, you guys are in for a great treat. Master Danadoost is going to be talking about Shafaw Healing, which is a profound, sacred modality of healing that one can heal issues, whether they be physical, emotional, psychological. The effects are profound. As you will hear the Master himself, he was healed from life-threatening diseases a few years ago by his Master, by his teacher, and since then he has gone on to help people heal from diseases such as cancer, such as leukemia, and others that we will talk about as we get into the call. So we are going to be really in for a treat here today. One little housekeeping note here, although it was not announced in the email, Master Danadoost has very generously offered to help people that are in need of healing, that are perhaps really in an immediate need of healing. So please be careful when you raise your hand. You will press star 2 to get into the queue. If you have already pressed star 2 and maybe your issue is not of an immediate nature, then I will have to, even if I pick you, I'll have to take you off the call, because this is going to be offered to people that may need some immediate relief. So that's one of the things I wanted to announce. Then today we will also have a guided meditation with the Master, and then towards the end we are going to have a group healing. So stay put. This is going to be an awesome call, and I would like to now welcome Master Danadoost to the call. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Master Danadoost, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started, how you even found Shafaw, how you found it.
It was in 1989 that I was diagnosed with leukemia, and that was pretty earth-shattering experience. And unfortunately, at the time, I had no idea about healing, and haven't heard about my mentor, Master Healer Parvarandeh. So out of desperation, I did go through horrendous chemotherapy, and it was an experience that no one wants to go through. I received the most potent form of chemo at the time, partially because they didn't think I'm going to pull through. Everybody at UCSF, all the doctors and nurses, they thought that I'm going to die. So they just poured in chemicals, and for some reason I pulled through. And the fluctuations of the blood cells were so huge that the doctors, after the autologous transplant, which means they give your own bone marrow to you, I did not have any match amongst my ethnic groups. I'm from Iran. I speak Farsi. That's my mother tongue. I did not have any match, even though we have a large population of Iranians in the U.S. and in California. My sister was here at the time, and she wasn't a match either for me. So at some point, out of desperation, they, as soon as the blood cells sort of kind of balanced, then they basically emptied me of whatever was left as bone marrow. They purged it. They gave me that, horrendous chemo. And I was basically burned from the outside and the inside. I could not see, I could not hear, I could not even think, I could not drink water. So pretty an amazing experience that overall helps me on an everyday basis with people that are going through such difficult times, It's a different in-depth understanding that I have when I work with people. And having said that, it's not really a necessity for people to go through pain to gain or to have access to the spiritual self, In fact, no pain, no gain is a fallacy. I dare to say, is blasphemous, God doesn't want people to go through pain to gain. It's just a hypnotic command, really expressed and executed by a few to control the mass, really. Anyways, the experience was really horrendous, and at some point my wife decided to take me back to the old country so I could visit with some of my family members. And throughout this time, I never thought that I'm going to die. Other people thought. I didn't. And I teach that now. Is like for you, for anyone, to achieve healing, whether it's, really emotional healing or physical healing, if there is really a difference, you must see yourself healed. You must see yourself healed. In other words, you can only imagine. You can only have what you can imagine. So if you can imagine, if you're going through really difficult times with your physical health or emotional health, you must imagine seeing yourself healed. And then that becomes like a seed of consciousness. And all seeds of consciousness are potent, extremely fertile. As soon as you plant the seeds, they swell, they sprout, they turn into a landmark, and you are going to claim it. So it was really a life-shattering experience. And when I was taken to Iran, the final day before I came back again, after I visited with my family members, I came to know of Master Healer Parvarandeh through my cousin, who is a physician. He's a neurosurgeon. He studied in Chicago and went back home to Iran, and he teaches other physicians, and he has a successful practice and all that. He came to know Master Parvarandeh before I did, and he introduced me to Master Healer, and that's how I came to know for the first time, and I was so, I dare to say, lucky. A man of such status, as a healer, total. You could see the divine aspects all over, when you met with this guy. So that's how I came to know what the healing is, or start to have some idea. For example, as soon as I saw him, he had prayer beads, and as soon as I look, I see this really gorgeous color of green halo around the beads, and then I see it around him, different colors, violet and all that. And I realized, oh, there is nothing wrong with my eyes. I always thought there is something wrong with my eyes, I didn't know what aura is, but I was seeing the aura. And now in his presence, all of a sudden it was augmented, and I could see people's aura. It was like, I was in, with all due respect for the Master, I was in Disneyland, It's like, ooh, that person's aura is red, and that person's aura is yellow and green.
Amazing.
And it was really an amazing experience, yes. So that's how I came for the first time to know about a healer and what a healer can do.
I'm reminded, of all the tales that I have read. I don't want to use the word tale, but I'm lost for some other word right now. But all the accounts in the history books of all these great masters of the East, of the great mystics of the East, which is exactly how you described it. They used to say that once you are in the presence of that, of somebody of that stature, things will just happen automatically just by being in their presence. The energy just unlocks your own hidden talents and your own energy. So it's quite amazing that you experienced that when you first met your teacher. So tell us more what happened then. Was he able to help you? Were you able to heal?
At the time, I did not really know what to do. The Western medicine had no longer any answer for me. The leukemia was in remission, but they told us it could come back anytime. And as a result of some of the chemotherapy drugs, I went to grand mal seizure, for example. I broke quite a few vertebrae and crushed, I think, 4 of them around the lumbar part. When I say crushed, I mean crushed. It's like 70-80% of the vertebrae totally crushed. And the fact that, I did not get disabled, handicapped, is a miracle by itself. And so grand mal seizure and, what happened after that, and broken ribs as a result of the grand mal seizure, the people from the hospital close to our home, didn't know how to deal with a seizure patient. And so they held me down, they injected, tranquilizers, and as they were trying to inject, of course I was convulsing, and they tore up all the muscles in my hands and arms, and so that's the reason why, because they held me down and tried to tie me up. I was biting my tongue and blood was pouring out. They didn't know really what to do, and they caused the injury. They caused the injuries, plural. And that itself, again, was another humbling experience and another learning experience that helps me out, again, very much so nowadays. So when I met with the Master Parvarandeh, I was okay, in remission, but everything was really badly in action. I couldn't walk. I had pain all the time, all over. I would have this, excuse my voice. My voice is taxed today for some reason. So can you hear me well?
I can hear you okay, yes.
Yes, okay. So I would get into this, muscle pains. Tremendous pain would come from neck to the Achilles tendon, and I would fall. And sometimes I would stay on the ground for 20-25 minutes before I could even begin to get up, and tears would come out of pain. I couldn't even utter any sound. The pain was so excruciating, and I went to my physician at UCSF, the person whom I have grown to really love. He's a wonderful man, Professor Reese, the chief of the oncology department at UCSF, and I said, there's got to be a way for me to suffer less. And he says, well, we did all we could. I said, but I can't even walk for 20 steps. I have this excruciating pain. He said, well, take pain medication. I said, how much pain medication can I take? And he said, well, I really don't know. I said, do you think multivitamin something might help? He said, well, that seems to be a good idea. So I started to take a multivitamin, slightly feeling better. Then I remembered my friend Linus Pauling, the chemist that has won 2 Nobel Prize, and him always talking about vitamin C, and he would say that I put vitamin C in my vodka, So go ahead, have a lot of vitamin C. It's good for everything. I said, okay, I'm going to try having vitamin C. So I started to take 1,000 milligrams. And there was some kind of relief in the muscle spasm that was so excruciating. You know, once in our parking, I wanted to slam the door, and the spasm came, and I fell on the ground, and there was grease and wetness, and, you know, pretty demoralizing, actually. So I started to increase the vitamin C, and by the time I met Master Parvarandeh, I was on 30,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, just to function. And of course, it has, you know, its own side effects, you know, like diarrhea and, you know, bloating and so on and so forth, but I could function. So the day before I came, as I said, back to the U.S., I saw him, and a few hours before my flight again, I saw him. At the time, he was not permitted to do healing. The government was threatened by him. And he was going to different houses, and, you know, people who knew him, they would bring their loved ones, and he would do healing. So I just sat at his feet, and I said, you know, I have to go back. Do you want me to stay, or do you want me to go back? He says, well, it's up to you. That's your decision. And I said, well, if I go on the plane and I don't take my vitamin C, there's going to be a chaos in the plane. He says, well, you know, it's up to you. And I said, I insisted. And finally he said, okay, stand up. I stood up, and, you know, he moved his hands up and down, and he said, okay, you can go. So that basically implied that I don't have to take the vitamin C, and I didn't. And I sat in the plane. You know, it's a really long flight. You know, door to door probably cost you like 30 hours with stuff in Europe and so on and so forth. And nothing happened. You know, no spasm, no excruciating pain, and nothing. So I came home, and I said to my wife, Patty, you know, I have not taken the vitamin C. It's been like 2 days, and I don't have those symptoms. And anyways, to our surprise, it's continued. My well-being continued. I felt the need, the urge to go back. Our financial situation was really, really very difficult. So I prepared myself to ask my wife if she would agree for me to go back to Iran again. And I said it, and to my surprise, she said, of course you have to go back. Yes. So we borrowed some money and, you know, for the cost of tickets, and I went back to Iran again. And, you know, at the time he was openly working. I stayed with him from morning to evening, night at a healing center, the home of a healer of his. You know, we don't say patients, we say healers, like I'm a healer. And if I work on someone, that person is a healer. Just to distinguish, you know, make a difference between Western medicine and healing. So I spent about 40 days with him every day. He was working every day, and I witnessed him, the work that he's done. The second time that I went back to Iran, after a few days, my wife calls in a panic and says, you have to come back. And I said, why? And she says, you have hepatitis B, you have hepatitis C, you have every disease that can be transmitted really by, you know, blood transfusion. You got to come back. You must go through treatment. I said, I'm sorry, I'm in good hands. I'm not coming back. I have to stay here. When it's time, I'll be back. And of course, she was dismayed, but she understood. And, you know, the same day, I told the master that somehow took a liking in me, would ask me actually come to sit very close by him. And, you know, people were really anxious to be close by him. So hundreds of people are sitting, and they're pushing to be closer to him. You know, he would do his healing mostly publicly. So people come and sit in front of him, and he would do healing. And, you know, I would go back to far end because there were so many people just eager to be at his close vicinity. So, and he would call me and he would say, why did you go back there? And I said, I'm sorry, people are pushing, they want to be close to you, and I just wanted to vacate some space for them. He said, no, when I tell you to come and sit next to me, you come and sit next to me. And I said, yes, Master. And by that time, people thought, I probably am a healer. They were looking, they were, asking with their eyes for help from me. And it's like, hey, I'm like you. Anyways, he took a liking to me, and I could talk to him directly. And I said, Master Parvarandeh, and in Farsi, Master, we say Ostad. So he's very much known as Ostad Parvarandeh. I said, Ostad, I have hepatitis B, C, and all that, and will you work on me? He says, okay, between the two patients, come and sit in front of me, on a pedestal. He put his beads on my shoulder, and he started, my back was towards him, and I could hear his breathing, sounding like, and even the sound was healing to me, very soothing. And I felt the beads cut through me, like a hot knife through butter. And, he placed his hands on the liver, and he worked, and, I felt hot, and I started to sweat. Then I felt cold. And he said, in Farsi, Befarmai Janam. It's like, okay, you're done. Please go and sit. I'm done. And I said, can I go for a test? He said, it's up to you. And I said, when should I go for a test? He said, up to you. So the next day, first thing in the morning, of course, I went to a lab, and I had tests done. My cousin was a physician, so he wrote all sorts of tests. And lo and behold, when we got the results back in a few days, some of the enzymes of the liver were reduced by 75%, some by 45%, and the yellow in the eyes were almost gone, and I felt energized, and my complexion was better, and I mean it was truly nothing short of miracle. So I faxed the results to my wife.
That is a miracle.
Yes,
Wow.
and that's really what happened after 40 days of observing how he selflessly put himself on the line, day and night. He would forget to eat, and his wife would come, and they were the best of buddies and partners, and he would call him by his first name and said, Amir, come here and eat something. And he would say, okay, yes, sir, and he would eat something. And, as he was chewing, he was continuing healing, totally selfless. Yeah. So I came back. Yes. So I came back to the U.S. and, there was so much enthusiasm in me. His holy healing, heavenly frequencies rubbed off on me and enhanced my frequencies, and I started to do healing. I would go to a restaurant, and the waitress was limping, and I would start to blow healing light towards the knee and the back and so forth, and my wife would get embarrassed to stop it, and people were looking. I was totally in a altered state, so to speak. And after 3 months, by now the friends and family members, their friends know, and I'm excited. Anyone that comes, I jump to do healing, totally enthusiastic. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me, my goodness, how disrespectful. I did not ask for his permission. 3 months later, I called him, and, he was difficult to reach. He crossed over in 1997. And anyway, I talked to him, and I said, please accept my apology without asking your permission because of this, this enthusiasm that I have, the love of God that I have in me. I just doing healing. And he says, okay, that's okay. What are you doing? And I explained, and he said, what are you saying when you're doing the healing? And I said, Bismillah, which means in the name of God. And he says, well, that's not enough. I said, okay, what should I say? He says, say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which means in the name of God who's kind and merciful. And say in the name of the Creator. And that gives you protection. And then work, but do not work on cancer patients because you still have cancer in you. And I said, okay. And basically that allowed me to, gave me the green light.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. What did you say? Do not work on what? I missed that.
People with cancer, because you still have the energies of cancer in you.
Okay.
And, right. And, about a year later, he actually came to the U.S. And, we met very often. He came to his sons that at the time they were living in Silicon Valley in California. Wonderful beings. He came with his wife, and, we met very often, and then he allowed me to work on cancer patients. And amongst his students, I was the only one that could have done distant healing. And I was really blessed to have him in Iran, and then he came by himself to the U.S., Shortly thereafter, he was very well known. There were seminars at UCLA's, and different centers of healing would request his presence, including Dr. Norman Sheedy. I hope you know him. To me, Dr. Norman Sheedy is the guru of research for alternative medicine. He's a physician, and he also is a healer. And he had done double-blinded study with the master. I think he lives in Minnesota. And anyway, so I was blessed to see, Master Parvarandeh at his best, at the zenith of his healing.
Amazing.
Yes. So that's how the whole thing began.
It is so inspiring. Well, that is truly an inspiring story, and what a journey you had, Master Danadoost, yourself, because now I know, there are just tons and tons of testimonials that are on your website, and we've received them too for, people that have worked with you, and I don't think there's anything that I haven't seen as I was reading through them that you have not been able to help people with. But I'm sure everybody is just bursting with curiosity right now, because they're probably wanting to find out. This audience is pretty well aware. They're pretty well versed in the different healing modalities, but I know that Shafaw is kind of new for them. Can you explain how this is different? How is Shafaw actually different from other healing modalities?
Right. Shafaw basically inherent in its name means sacred healing, really, or / miraculous healing. So the name implies, whomever knows Farsi, and, I'm told like there are in 22 nations, they somehow speak Farsi, different dialect, but they all kind of sort of know what Shafaw means. So I chose the name Shafaw. It's not an ancient Iranian healing modality. I put it together based on my clairvoyant abilities. So, for example, I've been observing in the past 23 years, 22 years that, when you become fearful, the person sitting in front of me and there is fear, the fear gets soaked in to the area between the navel and the pubic bone. They just, get sucked in, soaked into that area, then they remain there. So the area is full of fear and fright. I observe, for example, that people, when they become insecure, their insecurities get sucked into the sacrum area. And the sacrum area, I know firsthand, is full of bone marrows. I had so many procedures done there that maybe that opened up the doorway for me to actually have the ability to observe that. As soon as people get insecure, all the frequencies of insecurities, they simply compile in the sacrum area, and they affect the production of stem cells, bone marrows. Then as we age, the stem cells are insecure stem cells, and then they contribute to the maintenance of insecure immune system. An insecure immune system, cannot deal with disharmonies of environmental poisonings, the emotional mishaps. It just can't deal with, say, cancer, for example, the big C word here. So I observe, for example, that personal fears are being stored in the kidneys. So as soon as they get triggered, it's like your knees give, you know. It's like, okay, you don't have much to offer anymore. You want to sit or lie down. I observe, for example, that what we call in Shafaw as easy emotions or frequencies of wrath, resentment, anger, frustration. You know, as soon as you become frustrated, you're late for 30 seconds, and no one notices but you resent being late. That resentment gets stored in your liver. So, you know, these are some of the areas that observed that is kind of universal, you know. When people are angry, it just, the anger gets stored, especially unexpressed anger, in the liver. So regardless of why anyone comes to our clinic, for what reason, headache, hemorrhoids, cancer of any kind, you know, fibromyalgia, you name it, you know, all the diseases that are deemed incurable by the Western medicine, for example, they have roots in these areas. So we physically actually scoop the stuck energies from those areas. And right away, people start to feel better. So we always work on some of these areas that I mentioned, just to give you an anchor point as of, you know, what we do in Shafaw in our clinic, with an eye on the reason why the individual has come to us, knowing that no physical healing can manifest without addressing the emotional aspect of the reason why that happened. So Shafaw is really a Farsi name, Iranian name, that I put on the healing modalities that I conjured up. It's not an ancient Iranian method. But of course, I carry with me 24/7 the essence of, you know, my ethnicity, my background, my beliefs. And for a person to heal using this modality, that may be good news for some of your listeners. They don't have to believe in what I think, what I do. In fact, I encourage, please do not believe in me. I would like to be free from those beliefs, because beliefs change all the time. You believe in me one day, and the next day you do not, and then what? But if you come open, you know, free from all your preconceived notions and judgments of my accent, you know, my looks, my ethnicity, just come for healing. And, you know, see it for yourself. Beautiful. Does it work for you? Are you being healed? Are you healed? Then what's the problem? Heal. So, yes. So
I love that. I love that.
Yes,
Give up, you know, put your judgments outside this door and then come in and receive some healing. I love that. I think that's one of the biggest problems we all have. If we could learn not to judge situations, people, places, and ourselves and the situations, that would just make our lives so much easier, wouldn't it? And I know that, Master Danadoost, you have some beautiful ways of teaching exactly that. I'm looking for those exact phrases. I was reading, I found it so interesting. Why do you believe in the places that no longer exist? I think that is what you teach also, places that no longer serve you. And it was so interesting because we all tend to do that, you know, either living in the past or living in the future, and keeping our judgments in place about, you know, either what has happened and then what's going to happen. And talk to me about how you actually, I think, have named gratitude as one of the best practices to actually shift into that place of healing, right?
Sure, of course. But before I talk about gratitude, and maybe time permitting, do a short meditation, you know, I have to answer. I'm answering you really why Shafaw is different. You know, I'm very careful. Please. I'm very careful not to give the impression that, you know, my healing way is the best, the only, and all that, you know, just like most healing modalities. You know, that's not where I am. But as I said, you know, I realized that no physical healing really can manifest without addressing the emotional aspect of it. So I designed Shafaw II just to deal with the emotional aspect. So, you know, one may have cancer. They do not come to me for cancer. They come to deal with their emotional aspect. And once those emotional aspects are dealt with, then testimonials are, what did you do? I don't seem to have the tumor anymore. And I haven't worked on the tumor. You know, I have not done any, when we do Shafaw II, I do not really address the physical aspects directly. And the person is the one who does 80% of the work. So it's entirely different. The person is totally engaged in Shafaw II, and they do like 80% of the work. In regular Shafaw healing modality, not Shafaw II, but Shafaw, I do 95%, 98% of the work. I do the majority of the work. The person comes in person, the person calls, or from far away, distant, you know, we know. Basically, every month we have a few patients from different parts of the world, from Australia, Japan, Middle East, Europe, different states in the U.S., Canada, that they have a loved one who is in coma, and they ask for our assistance. And you know, probably all these past 22 years, there has been only one case that I wasn't able to bring someone out of the coma. And there's a point to what I'm saying. I'm not boasting about Shafaw. There is, you know, the person doesn't know me. I don't know them. I don't have even a picture of the individual. But somehow something happens. You know, the stars, the universe, the love source, you know, I call God love source. Something happens here that brings the person out of the coma. You know, whether they live or die, that I don't know, but I bring them back out of the coma. Now the point is, okay, they did not believe in me. I don't not even know where they are. You know, they may say we are in Australia. That's a continent. You know, I don't know where they are actually physically, but there are ways and means of communication. We always bring them back from coma. Now, I could say that I'm a good operator. Very good operator, you know, and I press buttons, I do things, you know, invisible helpers and masters and archangels come, I don't have to ask for them. But they start the healing process, they come out of the coma. Now, someone who calls me, someone who comes here, they actually have a role in their healing process. It's no longer just I and the invisible helpers. You know, they actually have a role. And you know, the way they judge me, the way they judge themselves, the way they have their secondary gains from the disharmonies and the diseases they are suffering, you know, I make them honest with themselves, realizing that you really actually don't want to heal, do you? And that's a huge process for someone to actually admit no. You know, my pain is 10, I want it to be 2. You know, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, the most amount of pain. You know, the majority of people that come here, initially, I'm talking about initially, they really don't want to heal. They want to get better. They want to be functional doing whatever they are doing. And Einstein, as well as a host of thousands of sages and gurus, have said that, you know, you can't do the same thing and expect a different result.
Yeah.
So in Shafaw and Shafaw II, we bring that honesty into the individual, that you must shift from the distorted patterns of conditioning, social hypnosis, and so forth. So the healing can manifest.
This is so fascinating. This is so fascinating, Master Danadoost, because what you're saying is, or at least I'm understanding, that they don't need to be wanting to completely heal. You just need them to be honest with themselves.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Wow.
In fact, you know, the title that I put on today's talk based on, you know, your way of working with your followings and your crowd. The title is, "Are you a friend of yours?" You know, I'm asking. Or, "Are you your worst enemy?" I did not say that in the email. You know, when you keep on attending to your secondary gains, you're not going to heal. regardless of what I do, regardless of who does what. You know, no chemotherapy can stop the disease. For as long as you're not honest with you, the process is going to perpetuate. You see, Eram, there's a difference between treating, curing, and healing. If you go to a physician and the person says, oh, no problem, that's treatable, that's exactly what they mean. It means you have to take the drug for the rest of your life. That's what treatable means. But people don't know that. They think they're going to heal. You know, you have blood pressure, so take this blood pressure medicine for the rest of your life. Blood pressure is treatable. But there is no talk about healing. You see, when you know, a physician says, okay, that's curable, which means, okay, they actually can give a medicine, the tumor can shrink. You know, there are possibilities that the tumor can shrink. And once the tumor has shrunk, the you know, the blood counts say that at this instant in time you do not have cancer, then they give you 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and say if the cancer doesn't come back in 5 years, then you're healed. And that's how we operate in Shafaw. You know, there is a distinct difference between healing and curing. You come to me for headache, I remove your headache. But the headache comes back in a year. Then healing has not happened. Healing is when the headache never comes back. So if people come to me and, you know, the tumors are visible, let's talk about breast cancer, for example. I always ask someone, a loved one, to come with the patient. Whether they accept or not is a different story. And I ask them to actually examine the breast and draw, you know, how big it is. And I ask the patient to confer, is this true? Is that how big is it? And 10 out of 10, 100% of the time, I shrink the tumor. No doubt.
Wow.
You know, they can be in my presence. They could be in different parts of the world. It doesn't matter. 100% of the time, I shrink the tumor. And many times, I totally make the tumor disappear. But it doesn't mean the cancer is gone. Do you see that? So, yes, I've cured the tumor.
Now.
You know, it may come back in a day, it may come back in a year. But the healing has not happened. That's why, you know, I say, you know, once you see the evidence, and the Western medicine can concur, and that you know, okay, the tumor is gone, tumor markers are not there, you still have to come. You still have to continue with the changes that we have established together. You know, you still have to create those shifts in your life for the healing to manifest. So that is really what makes Shafaw different. You know, very organized.
Amazing.
You know, we know exactly what we are doing. You know, in Shafaw we say, as a Shafaw healer, and I have a lot of wonderful. We have a lot of wonderful Shafaw healers in that work with our clinics. You know, some of them have been studying with me for the past 7 years. They do great work, you know, great work, amazing healers. And that's why, you know, people have to have honestly to see that, okay, do I have secondary gain here? You know, being honest basically means seeing the condition as is. You know, if a person comes to me and I can't see what's wrong with the individual, then what am I healing, right? I must be able to see what is wrong, you know, where the disease is. And once I see it, I step aside from that. You see, in Shafaw we fight nothing. You know, we don't cut, we don't fight, nothing. We create a reality opposite to what is. That's the major difference. So yes, there is a cancer tumor. I can see it. You know, I can put my finger on it, and like a balloon, you know, it shrinks. But it doesn't mean, it you know, basically, yes, you know what I'm saying. Yes. So that's really the major difference.
Yeah.
It's
amazing. I can't wait to experience the group healing or maybe we can do the meditation first and then come back and do the group healing after we've talked about your offer. I think that would be better.
Sure, but did I answer your question? I'm sorry,
yes,
did I answer your question?
Actually, you did. Yes, okay. You answered my question, and I'm going to encourage people to send me their question if they were able to understand. So what I understood from what you were saying, Master Danadoost, was you are not treating the symptoms, although the symptoms do go through a change, like the tumor shrinks and stuff, but you are actually focusing on the root cause of the problem, which could be anything, but you are addressing that for healing. So
that's true.
I did understand that.
Yes, that's true. And if I may add something to it, finding the root cause doesn't mean that we are going to start to analyze and prioritize and categorize and dissect. That's not what we do. We realize there is a problem. So heal the problem. As the problem is healed, the root cause is gone. You see, it's a different way of thinking. Okay. So, yes, it's the leukemia that I suffered and I dealt with and brought me in here. Unfortunately, the hypnosis, the hypnotic command of no pain, no gain applied in my case. I don't really need to know the cause, though I know the causes, but I don't really need the cause. I just have to heal. When the physician, told me that, brought me a huge medical book and opened up and magically it was leukemia. I said, read this, I'll come back in half an hour. He came back in half an hour and the book was shut. He said, did you read it? I said, no. He said, why not? And he was kind of embarrassed. And I said, I just know I have to deal with this giant and I have to come out of it with flying colors. That's all I need to know. The terminologies and all that are confusing. The way that how things work is confusing. I'm not a physician. I just know that I have to heal.
Beautiful.
And I want to heal. So that's really the level of honesty that we bring into our any and all healing processes. Yes. And I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you to finish the, what I was saying. Yes, go ahead, please.
No, I love it. I love it because you are bringing that simplicity into it. And what was it? I think it was perhaps, I do believe it was Einstein that said when the answer is simple, you can be sure that it's from the divine. That is so true. We tend to get so lost in the complex answers that our brain seems to just yearn for, and it asks for it again and again, and it tries to, the logical side of, because we're trained. We're so trained, and like you say, we are conditioned to look for those kind of complex logical situations, and that takes us away from that simple, honest truth. So I just love how beautifully you were explaining that and how healing actually occurs at that level. That truly is an eye-opener for me, that healing occurs at a very basic, simple, honest level. Beautiful. I think everybody can do that. I think so. They should be able to, but
absolutely.
But it's one of the hardest things to do, huh?
Well, if you see it as hard, then it is hard. The whole thing, really for me, to start to even have an idea, a notion, a concept about healing, I was totally alienated with the subject of healing. I believed in 3 magic words, just like realtors that believe in 3 magic words, location, location, location. I believed in 3 magic words, logic, logic, logic. And it's like, logic kills you. You want to be logical? Yes, there is a lot of probably satisfaction out of being logical, dissecting the heck out of every condition, going in circles, back and forth. 30 years from now, you still are dealing with the same condition. Because as you're trying to dissect, more information comes. It becomes so interesting that you get lost in the maze of what you're trying to discover. Healing will not happen. It's impossible for healing to manifest. One of the things that we do in Shafaw when, whether it's distant, non-specific, which means, people say, for example, work on me today. And I'll work when I'm guided, not when there is an agreed upon time, So when when I'm guided, then I work. It could be 10 times a day, it could be once a day. I work and healing manifests. That's the most powerful form of healing. Then, of course, we have the distant specific. It's like, work on me 3 p.m. today. And at that time, the person, wherever they are, in whatever part of the world, they sit and rest or lie down and rest, and they do the healing, and healing manifests. The third, in terms of strength, is the phone sessions. Because again, we are talking, and words may be, at sometimes good, it's kind of our way of communicating, but at the same time, they also work as hindrance, And the fourth, in terms of strength, number 4, is actual in-person healing. So people get it wrong. They think if they come to me, that's the most powerful form of healing. But yet, we are facing our human aspects. I look at you, you look at me. You look at my gray beard, and you probably focus on the accent or something, and I'm trying to look at your aura and see if you have energy leaks from different organs and so on and so forth. So these are waste of time. But nonetheless, human touch is important. Words are important, though they inhabit. Anyways, we ask them, after the session, if there are any positive changes. So we focus on saying, if there is any positive changes, please say, and that's our magic sentence in Shafaw. Thank you, please continue. Addressing your thanks to divine. Addressing your thanks to love source. But you must finish the sentence. Thank you is not enough.
Thank you, please continue.
It's like after our talk today, you say thank you, and I say thank you, and we'll all go our separate ways. But if you say, you know what, Master Danadoost, thank you, please continue, then I remember you.
That is beautiful.